So hello and welcome to the Dharma Life Podcast. I'm your host, Eloise Sefley Middleton. And today I have with me a dear, dear friend of mine, somebody I've known for, how long have we known each other? Must be 15 years now? No,
At least.
at least
More
15.
than that, I think. Yeah.
Wow, well, a dear friend and mentor to me, Marcia Martin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Eloise. This is such a blessing to be here with you.
You called me Eloise or Kitty?
I know. Usually I love to call you Kitty because you are Kitty to me, but your request is Eloise, and I want to respect you.
Ah, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Marsha is a transformational thought leader. She is a pioneer of the human potential movement. She's a best-selling author. She's an executive coach. And she's also very dear to me, somebody who's been in my life for 15 years, who I can always pick up the phone and say, I need your help, please.
That's great.
And thank you
Excuse
so
me.
much for coming on the podcast today because
Oh, I'm so excited.
oh, well, we're just so grateful to have you. You've been kicking ass and writing books. Very proud of you.
Yeah. My new book, Sex, Power, and Transformation.
Very proud of you for that book. We'll come on to the book, but it's already a bestseller, which is just amazing.
Yeah.
But Marsha, I'm doing a breakdown to breakthrough podcast series. And basically, I have been interviewing really powerful, interesting people who have had large breakdowns in their lives to show people how you recover when you go through a difficult period in life. And you are somebody who I admire and respect because you have gone through these difficult periods and you've been very open about it. And I wonder if you might share with our audience, something that you've had to transcend in your life and how you've gone about that.
Yeah, I'd love to share. It's a great topic. I would like to contextualize my perspective of the topic because over the years it's changed. And I've always thought that a breakdown was something that was necessary for a breakthrough. And I think that is true still. But I also view it that there's a flow and a path that we all have in our lives. And we're given signals of what choices to make to be able to contribute the most valuable thing that we can. I think that that's part of our destiny, that we're somehow shown. If we're in touch with our inner self, then we have a flow that comes almost as if it's divine. And we find messages and we have events that tell us whether or not we should be where we are, or push, or insist, or persist. And I think sometimes the breakdowns are because the universe sees that we didn't listen to the signals and go along the path in the way that perhaps would have been better for us. And so it's a bigger signal. It's like, okay, you aren't listening, so take this, and we're slammed into some what we call a breakdown or an upset or a terrible loss or a trauma. But as a result of that trauma, we seem to make choices that get us back on the path. And so I think it's part of the flow. Um, in my life, I have discovered that it's interesting. My whole life has been about building communities. I was one of the original pioneers, like you said, of the human potential movement. I was the senior vice president of EST, which became Landmark Forum. And I started in that organization when there was only 30 of us in a seminar. And by the time that I left, I had 5,000 people working for me. We'd enrolled over 800,000 people around the world as graduates, and now there's millions of graduates worldwide. So it was quite impactful. But I got to a point where I needed to leave.
Mm.
And it was hurtful because I found in that situation that it was my home and my community, and I felt like I was losing my family. But there was something inside of me said that this is going in a direction I didn't want to go personally, and so I needed to leave. Well, on the other side of that, I realized that my the way I was brought up and my patterns, I always felt I didn't have a family. I always felt I didn't belong. And you know how the mind works. You've done so much study in psychology and philosophy and therapist and you understand that there's decisions that we make when we're young that guide us or push us to do actions that maybe we wouldn't have done, we wouldn't have wanted to do, we wouldn't, but they're running us. And I found what was running me was this decision that I had said, which was, I'm without a family. I don't have a family. I don't belong. Now, the only way I can prove that right is to create a family and then lose it. Because then it proves I don't have a family. I don't belong again. And when I look back at all the communities that I've created, I realized there were a couple of them, and the next one was the Transformational Leadership Council. I was one of the co-founders of the Transformational Leadership Council with Jack Canfield, and yet I was ousted from that organization. Now, Jack and I are dear friends, and everybody has said they're sorry for what happened, and that's all good. But I realized I had something to do with that breakdown because I could see that things were going in a direction that I didn't want to go, but I kept hanging in there thinking I could make it different. And so it's hard for me now to think of breakdown to breakthrough as a simple formula. I think it's more that you have a path, and when you stray off the path, as we all do, because we get attached, we have an ego, we get fame or money or power. And so, we want to keep it the way it is. There's all sorts of reasons that we justify to ourselves for straying off the path that we think that we should have gone on or what we should have done. And then the universe has a way of giving us signals. And in the beginning, the signals are so caring and sensitive. And, kind of like a tap on the shoulder. Hey, wake up, you're not going in the right direction. But mostly we don't listen to the signals. And so it takes a breakdown to have the breakthrough. It's not that the breakdown causes the breakthrough. It's that we're so stubborn not to listen to our inner self about the path that we're on and the decisions that we should make, that we actually insist on going in a particular way that doesn't work until the universe has to create some kind of breakdown to get us back on the path. And I've had several. And TLC was one of them, losing my reputation, losing money, and as I look back, now I find the blessing in it because I realize had I kept going in the way I was going, I wouldn't have impacted the amount of people that I've impacted since then because I was playing too small. But I didn't notice it then. And what's more interesting, I think, about the whole thing is, boy, we can make the breakdowns really dramatic. Because, my breakdown, for example, in TLC was really dramatic. I had someone who betrayed me and told lies about me and stole my partner and, spread rumors. And suddenly people were talking behind my back and accusing me of things that I hadn't even done and didn't even know. And it was really, really painful. But when I look back now, I got to tell you, and I love to say Kitty at this point because that's who you were to me at that time. I really realize if I just listened to my inner self, I would have left TLC a long time before. So, I don't know if that answers the question that you had or it gives it some kind of context, but
Yeah, I think what you're describing is really interesting because obviously having studied Dharma and the principles of Dharma, it talks about exactly that. When you're off your path, when you're
exactly.
straying off the path, say like I always call it the yellow brick road, we're supposed to follow our soul path. And
Yes.
when you're not quite on the correct path, you will get messages from your higher self to say, actually, you need to tweak what you're doing now. You need to leave
Yes.
that job, or you need to leave the TLC, or you need to leave something. There's something you're doing which is taking you in the wrong direction.
Yes.
But we don't listen.
Because we're so attached.
Yes.
Because we're listening to something that is part of our ego rather than part of our serving self. We'd have to give up fame, or we'd have to give up agreement, or we'd have to give up money, or we would have to give up, everybody loving us, or something we think that we need instead of being so clear about the path is what we need. The path is, and I love how you teach Dharma because it's a beautiful thing for people to know about.
Well, it really is because I think it can save us a lot of pain and
Yeah,
suffering.
yes, exactly. Pain and drama for sure.
Yeah. But how, obviously, hindsight is a wonderful thing. Now you can look back and you can say, oh, I realized I was slightly off my path and I was going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
But how do you recover from something like a major breakdown? And
Yeah.
what advice would you have for people who are suffering or struggling or going through something which they're
Yeah.
struggling?
Well, here's where it comes in that I've had a unique upbringing, a unique story, a unique life. And it goes back to when I was in my late teens and early 20s. I apprenticed with my mentor at the time, who was a distant cousin. We called her Aunt Gladys. And she was an esoteric um, um, teacher. She was like a shaman. So she studied all of the metaphysical kinds of things. And she taught me how to connect with my inner power and how to connect with and how to go within and how to meditate. And she taught me one of the best things that she taught me was that life was really a gift and everything that we experience is a gift. And it may not look like a gift, but it's teaching us something. And if we're experiencing it, we need it in order to learn the lesson that we're meant to be taught. So, interestingly enough, even though the pain is the same, I had an understanding of how life works, that during the hard times, I would actually know in an inner way that this was a gift for me, that this was a blessing, that this was something I needed to experience. And so rather than resisting it, doesn't take the pain away, doesn't make the pain any less. It's still, I've gone through a divorce, I've lost a child, I've lost a lot of money, I've had many things in life that were painful. And knowing that it's a gift as you're going through it doesn't take the pain away, but it gives you a perspective to understand it at a bigger level and to move through it rather than resist it. And I think that's the key. You need to experience it while it's happening rather than trying not to experience it, rather than resisting it, rather than pulling back, rather than hiding, rather than closing down. You need to really open up your heart. You need to have more awareness. You need to consider that you have a part of this, that there's something in this for you. And so you must have caused it in some way. If it's going to benefit you, then this was necessary. And just that perspective makes the journey, um, first of all, faster. Because if you stop resisting and you start moving and leaning into what's happening, and if you take responsibility for it instead of blaming it on everybody else, and start to say to yourself, I have a hand in this. I've made a choice that got me here. What were the choices I made? How do I need to change those choices? Just that can make it easier. And I don't think all people have that perspective. I think that people go into breakdowns thinking that's not fair, or there's somebody to blame, or this shouldn't be happening. And with that kind of a perspective, you resist it and you make it bigger and you make it harder to move through and you have it last longer. So, what I would say to people that are going through things that are uncomfortable and breaking is that who they are is totally perfect and able and whole. There's nothing broken in them. This is an experience they're having, and how they relate to that experience will cause the experience to
Expand.
happen faster.
Mm.
If you can move into it. I hope that's a long-winded answer. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I think what you're saying is you can only see what you are the vibration of, so you can only see the gift in something if you look for it. If you
Yes,
actually
very good.
if you
Very good.
expand and you
Yes.
expand into it rather than contract.
Yes. And I think you can only see the gift if you look for it. You can only look for it if you think of it as a gift. And
Yes.
most people don't think of a breakdown as a gift. They think of it as something that is terrible that's happening to them, rather than a gift or a learning process or something they need to be whole.
Yes.
So I think that perspective helps a lot. Doesn't change the pain as you're going through it, but it does make the experience happen faster. You get through it quicker
Yeah.
if you're not resisting it.
Yeah. Okay. But it takes a bit of practice because obviously, your things you're
Oh,
talking about, losing a child, you're getting divorced, all these things are very big things that you're describing. The average person, I think you're right, would struggle with the idea that they are a gift.
yes. And I think also, um, Kitty, it's because most people look outside of themselves for their answers. And that's a big turning point, is when you realize the answers are within. And that for you to grow, you have to go deeper inside of yourself, not go deeper outside of yourself. And that is hard for people to do when there's so much pain inside. They don't want to go inside with all of the pain. But the more that you go inside to face the pain, you realize the pain is just something that disappears as you experience it. And things open up in a different way.
Yeah, and I think is it too easy, isn't it, to blame everybody else rather than to look at what your own side or what your own
Yeah,
part of something. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And it's habitual. It's not just easy, it's habitual. Like I do relationship coaching and I know you do too. And there's never a time when somebody says, can he change? Can they change? Can she change? And it's always what that we see that everything else and everybody else what they need to change. And it's one of those things you have to practice for a while to look back at yourself and say, well, what did I do to cause me to be here? How did I act in such a way that I would end up here? What choices did I make or thoughts did I have that could have been different that would maybe put me in a different place? How am I responsible rather than placing blame?
So you can look back now on those periods of your life and see the gift.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And actually, I was, and that's what's so unique, I think, about my life because I kind of did it in reverse. Because I think most people go through life and have such an experience of life that they have a big breakdown, like you're saying, and then they discover who they are, and then they have that turning. I had the turning first before any breakdowns. It was kind of like I learned how life works before life happened to me. And so, even though the feeling of the life happening to me was the same, how I handled it was different than most people have handle it because most people do resist it. Most people do blame somebody else. So it's not that I look back now and I see the blessings. It's like during the process, I was saying to myself, what's the blessing?
Mm.
I was looking for the blessing. What did I do to get myself here? How did I cause this? How could I be different? And, to go in more than to go out.
Mm. Yeah, so it was about your side in things and your kind of actions and
Yes,
you got here rather than this happened to me and these people did this to me or this was done to you.
yes. When I look back, I realize that I I have a way to see the future. It's kind of like I'm very creative and it happens very quickly for me. So when we first started EST, there was, that first seminar had 30 people in it. And when I got out of that seminar, I had a vision of millions of people taking the training. I could see it. I could see when Jack and I created the Transformational Leadership Council that this was going to be a home for thought leaders around the globe. I could see that it was a bigger thing than just let's get together and have fun twice a year. It wasn't just a convention or a meeting, there was something bigger. So, one of the things I've learned about myself is I don't communicate well to let people know what I see. I just go there fast. And people then make up their stories about what's happening. And, then they make up the stories, or like it could be I'm arrogant, or I don't care, or I'm thinking too much of myself, or whatever. When the truth of it was, when I was in the TLC event, I was creating a media company for the thought leaders. Probably should have told everybody I was doing it for them. Probably should have told that why I was in Hollywood and hanging out with the George Clooney's and Brad Pitts and Jerry Weintraub's of the world was really, I was speaking for all of us to create a platform that we have many of those kinds of platforms now, but we didn't have then. A platform where, like you, are getting out the good wisdom of the world. And I had an opportunity to create that for the thought leaders. And then all of a sudden it turned into something where people thought what I was doing was getting attention, trying to be famous, taking all the money for myself, embezzling the money. And I was surprised by it. Do you see? I was surprised. I was like, why would they think that? And so it's just interesting how things unfold. But I think that it's all a blessing. And I think in the end, if you follow the path, if you go within yourself, if you listen to the voice within, if you are open to serving, that you will be led in the direction that needs to be the path for you, and things will work out. And when you don't listen, things get a little crazy.
Think having a good relationship with our higher self is imperative.
Yes,
Listening to those higher nudges and we're acting and corresponding accordingly is very important for us to have the most incredible life. Like you said, you were playing small. You
yes,
could have played bigger, but actually your soul was trying to get you to do more work, going in a different direction, which meant you could help more people.
yes. And had I stayed in the TLC, I don't think I ever would have written the book that I wrote. And
Right.
the book that I wrote has touched many, many, many people and freed them up from many things and given a history and experience to people that was needed. So it's just, it's almost a joke that the universe plays on us, isn't it? It's kind of like, I'm going to see if you can, how well you can listen.
Yes, absolutely. You've got to tune in and listen and to keep you on
Yeah.
the correct path. Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about this book because obviously
Uh,
I've read it, The Sex, Power, and Transformation.
yep. So this is the inside story behind the rise of the self-help empire, told by the woman who helped build it. So I was one of the key architects of what is now the self-help industry. I was one of the original senior executives of EST, which became Landmark, which is the largest personal development company in the world. And I personally trained myself over 300,000 people around the globe. including executives in corporations, in leadership and communication, including individuals in workshops about championship performance and communication mastery. And I've seen the whole industry grow from the beginning to where it is now. And this book is my experience of that. It's how it all started from my point of view. In other words, what I did and where I was and who I met and what happened to me. And it talks about my childhood too. So it's a book about patterns that we all have and how we end up where we end up because of some of those decisions that we made when we were so tiny, just children and trying to get more love. My pattern is look up to powerful men and prove to them that you're strong and get their approval. And so, it worked out in my marriage, that pattern. It worked out in the Est with the Werner Erhard, that pattern. It worked out in the Transformational Leadership Council with Jack Canfield with that pattern. It was that pattern for me of wanting to approve or wanting to get approval from a powerful man. So a lot of my journey is about the whole thing between men and women. And in this world, it is a man's world. And I'm a woman who had to deal with that. And so this book is a story of, it's my story, it's my memoir. But I think it will be a gift for many people about how to deal with power and what real power is and how power can take you down and how power can change you and how power is addictive. And it's a fun story too. It's got lots of stuff in it, like it's like the name, sex, power, and transformation. And I've had many journeys, so I think the book is something for people to enjoy and get captivated by, but really learn from.
When I read it, I think I'm not a quick reader, but I read it really quickly. It was a
Yeah,
book that you can just kind of get your head stuck into, and before you know it, you're halfway through it. It was just really, really
yeah,
fascinating. Hearing your life story was really interesting. Like being at the start of Est, how it was all formed and how it began was fascinating.
yeah. And I think it's a story that's really important right now because we're in an age where there's a lot of charismatic gurus and leaders, powerful leaders, and people are following them, whether it's in politics or it's in self help or it's in business. We're just, people sometimes just follow because they think somebody else has a better answer. And I think that people need to realize that enlightenment and transformation is a dangerous path. You're really needing to look at yourself, and there's a shadow side to all of us. So it's not all light and fun and great enlightenment. There's parts of yourself that you need to really look at and and face.
Mm.
The book doesn't, I don't come out looking great in this book all the time. Some of the times I say, hey, I did that. And I was thinking it was justified because we were changing the world and we were saving humanity. And then it was okay if we treated people badly or yelled at them or called them names to get them to produce more. We could justify it because of the mission was so big. And and I think that people need to know that it takes courage to be true to yourself because I remember thinking I can't leave Est, even though I thought it was going in a path I didn't want to go. And why did I say I couldn't leave? Because inside I thought I would be all alone. This was my community. This was my family. Who would I have in my life? It took a lot of courage to say, well, even if I have no one in my life, I'm going to live my life the way I think is right and, choose a path that's right for me. And so I did leave eventually. But it's hard. People get scared. And especially if we think the answer is without and that somebody else has it, and then we start following someone just because they're so charismatic or so courageous or so big. And then pretty soon, even those people that are leading, I think power has its own addiction. And I think there are a lot of leaders that started off thinking, I'm going to do this because it'll help mankind. And
Yes.
then when they became very powerful and got agreement and got money and got fame, all of a sudden, it wasn't so much about helping people, it was about staying in power.
Mm.
So all of those kinds of things are addressed in the book in a fun way. It's a story. It's my story. And so it is captivating. More people than you have said, I couldn't put this book down. I kept turning the page and I couldn't stop reading.
Yes, it was a real page turner, a real page turner. So,
Yeah.
the book itself is fascinating. Like it talks about the start of the human potential movement. And then, like you said, it talks about power, sex, and transformation. And what was your greatest achievement? What are you most proud of in the book?
Hmm. I think I'm most proud that I actually wrote it.
Yeah.
Because as you know, I've been saying for the last 20 years I've known you, and the last 20 years before that, I'm going to write a book. And I just never sat down and wrote it. And so I'm really proud that I did. And I'm proud of the way it came out because the book is magical. I didn't use AI and I didn't use a ghostwriter. I wrote what happened to me from my heart. And it was like the book wrote itself. It just came out of me. Now, I had some help with editors in terms of grammar at different places, but the best help I had was one editor said to me when I wrote the book the first time, because if you're an author, you know that you write and then you edit and then you rewrite and then you edit and then you rewrite and then you edit. She said to me, well, how did that make you feel? And she had me really go into my heart. So it was in the beginning just a book of this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. But then it became a book of this happened to me. And this is how I felt about it. And this is what happened to me as a result of it. And this is the lesson I learned from it. And from that point of view, I think that it can be a lesson for others as well. So I'm most proud of that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And where can people buy the book?
Oh, they can get on Amazon. It was #1 on Amazon for weeks. It's called Sex, Power, and Transformation by Marcia Martin.
Excellent. Oh, well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate coming on the podcast to share your story and to share your wisdom with us. I think that people will find that really insightful. I think if you are going through a difficult period, it is important that you take power and responsibility back.
Yes.
And, own the fact that this is your mess and you'll move through things a lot quicker. But look for the gift. Look for the gift in that situation. And don't forget to feel the feelings.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's been such a joy being with you, Eloise. I really love you so much, and I'm so proud of you and all the work that you do in the world.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. And we will see you next week with another amazing guest on the Dharma Life Podcast. Thank you, Marsha.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dharma Life Podcast. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. Please come over and say hello on my Instagram, our Facebook group, and also please let me know what you thought. So if you are listening, please take a screenshot of the podcast that you are listening to. Tag me on Instagram and I will reshare your post, and please let me know what it is that you got out of today's episode. Remember, when we do our Dharma, we are happier, healthier, we live longer, and we have a deep sense of unshakable inner peace.